The tomb of Queen Elizabeth I in Westminster Abbey has remained sealed for centuries, but that didn't stop science. Using new AI, researchers have virtually decoded her entire genome. They were looking for answers about her strange final illness, but they found something else. The AI uncovered a biological secret so profound that if true, it means the Virgin Queen was living a lie. Her entire reign, her power, all of it was built on a shocking deception: the DNA that shouldn't exist.
Elizabeth I, she regularly tops those polls as the greatest English monarch, but should she be there?
For more than 400 years, Queen Elizabeth I has rested in a lead-lined coffin beneath the stone floor of Westminster Abbey. Her tomb is a sacred spot, a monument of English history, and, to put it mildly, completely off-limits. She lies beside her half-sister Mary, the very woman who once imprisoned her in the Tower of London. For historians, scientists, and royal experts, this has meant that the greatest questions surrounding her life, and more importantly, her mysterious passing, would remain locked away forever. The secrets were buried with the Queen. That is, until now. A secretive international consortium, bringing together geneticists from Leicester University, the same team that identified Richard III, and AI engineers from Silicon Valley, has just announced the results of a project that sounds like science fiction. They call it the Tudor Genome Project. Using a revolutionary new artificial intelligence, they claim to have done the impossible. They have successfully sequenced, analyzed, and rebuilt the complete DNA of Queen Elizabeth I. And the findings are not just interesting, they are world-shattering, threatening to rewrite the history of a whole dynasty. So, how on earth did they do it? You see, the problem was never analyzing the DNA, it was getting it. Exhuming a monarch of her stature is simply not an option. It would take an act of parliament and the king's permission, and, let's be real, it's never going to happen. But the thing nobody tells you is that this team found a clever and controversial workaround. What many overlooked were the dozens, if not hundreds, of artifacts attributed to the Queen, held in private collections and museums all over the world. For centuries, most of these were dismissed as fakes, trinkets sold to collectors. The team, however, had a new weapon, an AI they nicknamed Argus, named after the all-seeing giant of myth. They spent 5 years flying across the globe, taking microscopic samples from items that had the best claim to authenticity. They focused on 3 key artifacts. First, the Chequers ring, a locket ring the Queen wore constantly, which reportedly contained a microscopic lock of her own hair and a tiny portrait of her mother, Anne Boleyn. Second, a preserved set of her gloves, which still held trace skin cells. And third, a state letter she wrote to the King of France, which was sealed with wax that she had impressed with her own thumb. On their own, these samples were a disaster. They were tiny, badly degraded after 4 centuries, and contaminated by hundreds of other people's DNA. This is where Argus came in. The AI was given 2 primary tasks. First, it had to act as a filter. It cross-referenced the tiny damaged DNA fragments from these artifacts with the known, verified genomes of her relatives. They used the newly mapped DNA of Richard III, who was her 3rd cousin, twice removed, and the established mitochondrial DNA from the Boleyn family line. Argus sifted through billions of genetic data points, and it found the matches. It confirmed, with a staggering 99% probability, that the hair, the skin cells, and a single epithelial cell trapped in the wax seal all belonged to the same female, one directly related to the Tudor and Boleyn families. They had found her. The second task was where the true magic, or madness, began. Argus used these fragmented, broken strands of code as a blueprint. It began a massive, deep learning simulation process the creators call genetic temporal modeling. In simple terms, the AI used a database of tens of thousands of 16th century European genomes to understand what normal DNA looked like for that specific time and place. Then it began to fill in the blanks. It rebuilt her genome piece by piece, chromosome by chromosome, cross-referencing its own work millions of times a second. The result is a virtual genome, a complete genetic instruction book for a woman who passed away in 1603. The team's initial goal, the one they used to get funding, was to solve the mystery of her passing. Her final weeks were famously bizarre and terrifying. After the passing of her closest friends, she fell into what her physician called a settled and unremovable melancholy. She refused to eat. She spoke of spirits in the room, and most strangely, she refused to lie down in her bed. For her last 4 days, she stood, supported by her exhausted ladies-in-waiting, or sat on cushions piled on the floor. She would hold her finger in her mouth or point at it, seemingly in agony but refusing to speak. Historians have long blamed this on one thing: blood poisoning from her famous makeup, the Venetian ceruse. This was the iconic white paint she caked on, sometimes over an inch thick, to hide her disfiguring smallpox scars. This cosmetic was a deadly mix of white lead and vinegar. What many people don't know is that it was so corrosive, it would burn the skin, which meant she had to apply more to hide the new blemishes. It also caused hair loss, which is why she wore those iconic red wigs. It was a vicious cycle. The AI confirmed this, and then some. The simulation showed genetic markers indicating she was uniquely susceptible to heavy metal poisoning. Her body simply couldn't process and flush out the lead. Her liver, the AI predicted, would have been scarred and shrunken. But that wasn't the shocking part. The lead poisoning, it turns out, was just a symptom. The AI found something else, a core genetic secret hidden deep in her X chromosome that explains why she wore the makeup, why she never married, and why she was so pathologically obsessed with her image. The AI uncovered a genetic condition, a physical abnormality that redefines her entire life as the Virgin Queen. What the AI found on her X chromosome. The biggest mystery of Elizabeth's life is right there in her nickname, the Virgin Queen. For her entire 44-year reign, this was her political brand. She wasn't just a queen, she was Gloriana, Astrea, the mythical virgin goddess returned to Earth. She was, as she famously said, married to her country. This identity dominated European politics. She famously flirted with a long list of powerful suitors, driving them and her own council crazy. There was King Philip II of Spain, her former brother-in-law, who wanted to marry her to bring England back to the Catholic faith. There was Francis, the Duke of Anjou, a French prince who she nicknamed her Frog. She even strung along her own childhood friend and courtier, Robert Dudley, for decades. But she never said yes. Historians have always argued this was a masterclass in political maneuvering. By staying single, she kept England free from foreign control. By almost marrying, she could play her enemies against each other, using the possibility of a marriage alliance as her greatest diplomatic weapon. It was genius. But the AI analysis suggests a different story. It suggests this wasn't just a brilliant choice, it was a biological necessity. According to the groundbreaking report, the Argus AI flagged a cluster of rare mutations on her X chromosome. These markers are consistent with a condition known today as androgen insensitivity syndrome, or AIS. This is a condition where a person is genetically male, with one X and one Y chromosome, but their body is insensitive or blind to male hormones. As a result, they develop physically as a female. They look female, they identify as female, but they do not have a uterus and are unable to bear children. If this AI model is correct, it means Queen Elizabeth I was, genetically speaking, male. This single finding is so explosive, it's hard to grasp. It changes everything. Her entire political identity wasn't just a strategy. It was an elaborate, lifelong cover-up for a biological secret that would have, without question, destroyed her. In the 16th century, the #1 job of a monarch, especially a female monarch, was to produce an heir, a legitimate, healthy heir to secure the dynasty. If Elizabeth's secret had gotten out, it wouldn't have just weakened her. It would have been the end of her reign. Her rivals, especially Mary, Queen of Scots, who had a healthy son, James, would have used it to declare her a monster, unfit, and unnatural. There would have been civil war overnight. Her entire reign would have been over before it began. So she and her most trusted advisors, like her spy master Francis Walsingham and her chief minister William Cecil, created a new identity. She couldn't be a mother, so she became a mythical figure. She turned her biological weakness into her greatest political strength. The thing is, this also explains her obsession with her appearance. That white lead makeup, It wasn't just about the smallpox scars. She had her first major bout with smallpox in 1562, and it was so bad she was temporarily blinded and her face was ravaged. But the AI suggests her genetic condition may have had other physical side effects. The Argus report notes that her famous elongated, elegant fingers, seen in all her portraits, are a common physical marker for this exact condition. The lead paint, layered thick as a mask, wasn't vanity. It was armor. It was a way to hide her physical self, to erase any sign of imperfection or masculinity, and present a perfect, untouchable, androgynous icon to the world. Think about her most famous quote, delivered to her troops at Tilbury as the Spanish Armada approached. "I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too." Many people are crazy about this new theory, suggesting this was her telling a secret, literal truth. She was telling the world that her body, her biology, was different. This secret was one she had to protect at all costs. It defined her life, her reign, and her famous loneliness. She could never let anyone get close enough to know the truth. This secret alone is enough to change history. But as the AI continued to analyze her code, it found a secret that was even bigger. A secret that wasn't just about her condition, but about her blood. Was Elizabeth a Tudor at all? This is the big one. This is the finding that has historians and royal experts absolutely reeling. The AI team didn't just look at her health, it looked at her heritage. It analyzed her paternal and maternal bloodlines to confirm her place in the Tudor dynasty. And what it found is a scandal 450 years in the making. To be absolutely clear, the AI confirmed her mother's line. The mitochondrial DNA, which is the genetic information passed down only from the mother from woman to woman, was a perfect match for the Boleyn family. There is no doubt, none whatsoever, that she was the daughter of Queen Anne Boleyn. The scandal, it turns out, is on her father's side. You see, King Henry VIII famously tore his country apart. He broke from the Catholic Church, dissolved the monasteries, and went through 6 different wives, all for one single obsession: to get a legitimate male heir. His entire life's work was about securing and continuing the Tudor bloodline. He had Elizabeth's mother, Anne Boleyn, arrested and then taken out at the Tower of London on trumped-up charges of infidelity and treason. He claimed she had affairs with 5 different men, including her own brother. History has always treated these as vicious lies, a political move by a tyrant king to get rid of a wife he was tired of and to make way for his new wife, Jane Seymour. But the AI report just threw a massive, explosive wrench into that entire story. The geneticist ran Elizabeth's virtual genome against the established Y chromosome markers of the Tudor line. The Y chromosome is like the mitochondrial DNA for men. It's passed down, almost unchanged, from father to son. They have these genetic markers from the confirmed body of Richard III and from other known male line descendants and relatives of the Tudor family. The result? No match. 0. Let's be perfectly crystal clear about what this means. The AI simulation, based on the DNA fragments recovered from Elizabeth's personal artifacts, concluded that King Henry VIII was not her biological father. The implications of this are almost too massive to process. It would mean that Queen Elizabeth I, arguably the greatest monarch in English history, the icon of the Tudor dynasty, the monarch who gave her name to an entire age, wasn't a Tudor at all. It would mean she had absolutely no legitimate claim to the throne. By the laws of her time, she was a usurper. It would mean her mother, Anne Boleyn, was unfaithful to the king, just as he had claimed. This reframes her entire life. Did she know? It's highly possible. Her father, Henry, declared her illegitimate and had her mother taken out when she was just 2 years old. She spent her entire childhood fighting her way back into the line of succession, a political pawn who could be cast aside at any moment. Many people are crazy about this new theory. They're suggesting her relentless drive, her incredible intelligence, her iron will. It was all fueled by the secret, terrifying knowledge that she was a fake. She had to prove she was worthy, even if her blood wasn't. So, if Henry wasn't the father, who was? The AI report can't name him, but it does note that the paternal DNA markers show a strong match to a noble family in Anne Boleyn's own circle. The leading candidates, long rumored, are 2 men. First, Henry Percy, the Earl of Northumberland, the man Anne was in love with before Henry VIII laid eyes on her. And second, a court musician named Mark Smeaton. What many overlooked is that Smeaton was one of the men taken out with Anne. At the time, historians believed he was just a poor soul tortured into a false confession, but this AI data suggests he might have been telling the truth. This secret was the ultimate political dynamite. If it had been revealed, it would have meant her immediate downfall and execution. It's a secret she, and her mother before her, took to the grave. But the AI had one last shock. It wasn't just about her life, it was about her passing. The AI team ran a final simulation, a virtual autopsy, and what it found in her body on her last day points not to illness, but to a plot. What really ended the Queen? The official story of Elizabeth's passing is a tragic one, but simple. She was 69 years old, an ancient age for the time. She was heartbroken, mourning the passing of her cousin and closest friend, Catherine Carey, and still deeply shaken by the rebellion and execution of her one-time favorite, Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex. The story goes that her body, already weakened by a lifetime of stress, finally gave out. She was poisoned by the decades of toxic lead makeup. Her final bizarre days, standing for 4 days straight, refusing to lie down, pointing to her mouth, were seen as the delirium from a high fever. Her pointing was believed to be a sign of her blackened, rotting teeth, a known side effect of the lead. This story is, according to the AI, a convenient lie. The Argus team ran what they call a virtual autopsy. They used her newly decoded DNA to build a perfect one-to-one digital model of her body, including her organs, her blood, and her metabolism. It was like a super advanced video game of her biology. Then, they simulated her condition in her final weeks. They introduced the lead from the Venetian ceruse in the amounts she was likely using. The lead was there, absolutely. The simulation showed it had damaged her liver and weakened her immune system, but the AI found that the lead levels alone, even with her genetic susceptibility, were not enough to cause the specific bizarre symptoms she displayed. The delirium maybe, but the standing, the agonizing muscle pain, the pointing to the mouth, the AI model said no. There was another substance, something that shouldn't have been there. Argus ran a toxicology screen on her virtual body, testing for thousands of known toxins, and it got a hit. The AI detected the chemical markers of a highly toxic and incredibly clever poison. This wasn't a crude heavy metal like arsenic, which would have been obvious. It was a sophisticated organic compound, a mix of aconite, also known as wolfsbane, and Atropa belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade. This is a wow factor to say the least. This combination is diabolical, a true assassin's cocktail. The belladonna, given in small, steady doses, would cause the fever, the flushed skin, the delirium, and the confusion. It would look just like a bad sickness. Meanwhile, the wolfsbane would do the real work. It's a paralyzing agent that works slowly. The AI simulation showed it would have started as a burning and tingling in her mouth, which explains exactly why she kept pointing to it, unable to speak. Then the toxin would have attacked her nerves, creating agonizing muscle pain and stiffness. This explains why she refused to lie down. Lying down would have been torture, as the poison made her feel like she was being crushed. Standing, or leaning on her cushions, was the only position that offered any relief. Finally, over a period of days, the poison would have slowly, relentlessly paralyzed her. Respiratory system. She didn't just pass away in her sleep. She was slowly and painfully suffocated, fully aware but unable to speak. By a poison so rare and sophisticated, no one in 1603 would have ever known to look for it. This wasn't sickness. This was a political hit. This was assassination. The AI, of course, cannot name the person who gave her the poison, but the list of suspects is short and terrifying. Who had the motive and the access? First, there are the Spanish, or agents from Rome, still furious over the defeat of the Armada and the Queen's refusal to return England to Catholicism. But the AI report points to someone closer. What about James of Scotland? He was the heir, the only heir. Was he getting impatient? Or, and this is the most chilling theory, what about her own spy master, Sir Robert Cecil? Cecil was the son of her most trusted advisor. He had secretly been writing to James of Scotland for months, planning a smooth transition of power. What if he saw his queen, old and grieving, as a liability? What if he decided to ensure that smooth transition, a quick, clean end disguised as an old woman's illness? So what does this all mean? Is this all true? Did this happen overnight? The thing is, this is an AI model. We have to be down to earth about this. It is a simulation, a powerful, educated guess. It is not the same as having her actual body on a lab table, but it's a prediction built on real genetic evidence, recovered from real artifacts and cross-referenced with real historical accounts. And the scary part is, it all fits. The bizarre symptoms, the political secrecy, the lifetime of hidden truths, it all lines up perfectly. Are we missing a key detail, or has this AI just unlocked a 400-year-old cold case? It has opened a door to the past, and it has shown us that the Virgin Queen was a far more complex, tragic, and stronger figure than we ever knew. She wasn't just fighting her enemies, she was fighting her own biology, her own bloodline, and, in the end, a hidden assassin.